Could it infringe on your ability to recreate on public lands? Absolutely. Anything has trade-offs. Anything has costs incurred. You could lose access if things are fully catalyzed. Where we have seen things recently gone awry, and maybe I'm a little bit biased here in the direction I've seen this, we don't see as much scrutiny for a lot of renewable energy projects as we do with conventional energy projects. And I think both have to be weighed very equally. However, we saw in the last administration, they were giving preference. If people had dug into the details like some of us weirdos do, the wonks, sportsmen and women would be outraged to know that the BLM under the Biden administration was giving an 80% discount for solar and wind companies to bid on leases. If an oil and gas company received those privileges, people would be screaming for their heads to roll. And when you look at those little different measures, rulemaking and other provisions that were, given to them, we had different laws that were passed to fund a lot of green projects on federal lands without accounting for what's going to be the footprint. Are you going to lose wildlife corridors? Are you going to lose access? What are going to be some of the ramifications and the consequences of this? And I think a lot of people did start to wake up when that big Western solar plan was discussed. It would have potentially catalyzed 33 million acres on 12 different Western states, which is a lot of acreage. And with solar and wind in particular, there aren't that many guardrails. They promise that we're going to rehabilitate some of the land that we develop or the land that is adjacent to our projects. We saw with the conservation lease program under the BLM, the rule that was just revoked and undone. And I think it might be challenged similarly in Congress to make that permanent so you don't go back and forth over this. This has been debated, like a conservation lease. And hypothetically speaking, maybe if it was more pro-sportsman, a conservation lease can work. But the way that they were doing it was to create no uses. So things could be rewilded. And that's not necessarily very healthy, as we know, as conservationists. And management isn't meaning that you're going to be developing everything. It also means like picking up after yourself and making sure like when you're on a public target shooting range, like you're not leaving any shells or any, fragments left over. So human improvement, I think is a good way to think of management. So it's not just like cutting trees or harnessing energy or going hunting and fishing. It also is like maintenance of the lands. And a lot of these places that become protected for no uses under this thinking for a conservation lease. That's what I think the extreme interpretation of it would have been, where these environmental groups with outsized influence and monies, not like an RMEF or like actual conservation groups, they would have successfully outbid true conservation groups under this conservation lease segment and be preferred with that. Or renewable companies would have had advantages in this conservation lease too if they had promised mitigation with their projects